Hello, my friends. I'm glad you are here. Take one slow breath. Let your body rest. Tonight, we will look at something small, a key. Have you ever wondered how something so small became so important? Today, a key feels ordinary. Many people touch one every day. It may open a front door, a room, a gate, a drawer, a box, or a car. It may sit in a pocket from morning to night without being noticed very much. But long ago, this small thing mattered in a deeper way. To understand that, we have to go back to the time before cities, before crowded streets, and before most people had many fixed things they could leave behind. Long before cities, many people lived a moving life. They followed water, weather, animals, and the changing ground. They carried what they owned. A tool could be tied to a bundle. Food could be packed into skin or basket. A shelter could be made, used, and left behind. If a group moved on, much of life moved with them. In that kind of world, there was little need for a key. A person did not need to lock what could be carried. A family did not need a strong door if they would not stay long enough for the place to become full of stored things. But over time, some people began to live differently. They stayed near fields. They planted seeds. They waited for crops. They kept animals close. They built walls that stayed standing. They shaped jars for oil and grain. They made baskets, shelves, pits, and rooms where food and tools could remain after the day's work was done. This changed daily life in a quiet but powerful way. Now a family might work for many days, and the result of that work would stay in one place. Grain after harvest, seed for the next planting, oil for cooking and light, cloth for colder weather, tools for cutting wood, turning soil, or mending a roof, dried food for months when the ground gave little. Before, much of life moved with the body. Now, part of life stayed behind a wall. That was new, and once something stayed behind, it could be taken. A room full of grain might feed a household through a hard season. A jar of seed might decide whether the next season could even begin. A set of tools might decide whether work could continue tomorrow. So the problem was no longer only how to grow, gather, and build. The problem was also how to protect. At first, people used the kind of answers they could make with what they had. They tied doors with rope. They pushed wood across an opening. They leaned heavy stones in front of a storage place. They made lids hard to lift. In some homes, a person slept close to the goods. In some larger places, a worker or guard stayed nearby through part of the night. These answers helped, but they were never perfect. A tired person can fall asleep. A rope can be cut. A bar can be moved. A heavy stone can be dragged aside. So people kept searching for something better. That search led slowly to locks and keys. The first keys were not like the small metal keys many people know today. Some were large, some were rough, some were made of wood. Some worked by lifting small pieces inside a lock so that a bar could slide free. The shape was simple, but the idea was powerful. Now a door did not have to depend only on weight or force. A chest did not have to depend only on thickness. A room could remain closed until a certain hand arrived. That was a major change in settled life. Imagine a small early village at the end of harvest. Dust from the field still sits on clothes and arms. Baskets are full. The light is falling. Children are tired. Older people sit near the wall and watch the last bundles come in. The work of many days now rests inside jars, baskets, and a small storage room. No one wants to lose that work in a single night, so the closed room matters,
and the thing that opens the room matters too. In that moment, the key is no longer a small object only. It becomes part of hunger and safety. It becomes part of rest. It becomes part of tomorrow.
A family can close the room and step away. A worker can stop watching every minute. A parent can sleep with a little less fear. The key does not remove danger, but it gives people a better way to answer danger. That is why it moved so close to daily life, and the person who held the key now had a special role. In some homes, that person decided when stored food would be reached. In a shared building, that person might open the room when grain had to be counted or divided. In a workplace, that person might control the tools needed for the day. So the key began to change human relationships inside settled life. It helped create new habits. Wait until the room is opened. Ask before the chest is touched. Trust the person who keeps the key. As villages grew into towns and towns into cities, the need for keys grew with them. A crowded place held more goods and more strangers. It had workshops, markets, temple rooms, records, shared stores, payment rooms, and private chambers. The more human life gathered into one place, the more often doors began to matter. A trader on a long road might carry cloth, salt, metal, or oil in a locked chest. A workshop might close its tool room at dusk. A temple might protect offerings or sacred objects behind an inner door. A public store might hold grain meant for many families. An official room might keep tablets, records, payments, or sealed goods. In each case, the door protected something different, but the key kept doing the same human work. It decided when the closed place would become open. So locks improved and keys improved with them. This did not happen all at once. It happened in the quiet way many useful things spread. A maker learned from failure. Another copied a good design. A traveler noticed a clever lock in one town and remembered it in the next. A craftsman worked for a season in a different place and left behind a new method. Traders carried goods across rivers, dry roads, mountain paths, and sea routes. Along with cloth and salt and worked metal, they also carried ideas. That is how the key traveled. Not in one great moment, not to every place at the same speed, but through hands, memory, need, and imitation. When people entered new lands, they brought old habits with them. They knew how to build doors, how to hang them, how to protect a chest, how to close a grain room. A town far away could still receive an old idea through a moving family, a visiting worker, or a merchant with a long journey behind him. Later, larger states needed even more order. A small village might have 1 or 2 storage spaces. A larger town had many. A growing state had gates, offices, guarded rooms, public stores, and places for records, payments, supplies, and weapons. Such places could not stay open to everyone all the time. So by this stage, the key had entered many corners of settled life. A family might use one for grain or money. A trader might keep one close while sleeping on the road. A temple keeper might use one for an inner room. An official might open a records room or a public store at the start of the day. A gatekeeper might carry one while standing near the entrance to a yard, a hall, or a guarded building. That is why the people who held keys began to stand out. Not everyone was trusted with a door. Not everyone was trusted with what lay behind it. In one house, the key might rest with the head of the family. In a large house, a servant might carry many keys but own nothing that they opened. In a temple, only certain hands could touch certain doors. In public life, officials might open stores, count goods, and close them again. So the key did more than open and shut wood and metal. A person could see it in daily life, on one belt, in one hand, at one doorway. It showed who could step forward and who had to pause. The making of keys changed, too. In some places, wood worked well enough for a time, but metal became more important because it lasted longer and could be shaped with more care. This required labor that many people never saw. Ore had to come from the ground. Fire had to be kept hot. Metal had to be worked, cut, filed, and tested. A lockmaker had to think with the hand as much as with the eye. Imagine such a worker late in the day. The light is weaker now. Small filings sit on the table. The lock has been opened and closed many times already. The maker is still testing the fit, still listening for the right movement, still adjusting one small part so the key will turn cleanly and the bar will hold well. A finished key feels simple in the hand, but simplicity often sits on top of hidden effort. That hidden effort belongs to this story, too. There is also a harder side to the story. The same object that protects a family can also be used in colder ways. As towns and states grew larger, not everyone stood in the same place in society. Some people held keys. Others stood outside the door. Some people kept stores. Others carried goods they would never own. Some people opened rooms for rulers, merchants, priests, or officials, but had no right to what was inside. Many kinds of doors could now be locked. A ruler's storeroom, a tax building, a records room, and even a prison cell could all be closed by the same simple idea. But the meaning was not the same for everyone. A servant might carry keys all day and still have no power over the goods behind the doors. A guard might open a gate for others and never pass through it freely for himself. A worker might help move sacks into a room and then stand outside while someone else turned the key. So the key belonged not only to safety, but also to control. That is part of its history. For one person, a locked chest meant bread next week. For another, it meant the goods were close enough to see and still not theirs to touch. For one family, a locked door meant sleep. For another person, it meant waiting outside in the dark. This does not make the key evil. It means only that the key stood near human power, and human power has always had a hard side. Even so, the world kept growing busier. Roads filled with movement. Ships carried larger loads. Markets expanded. More cloth, grain, tools, metal, papers, letters, coins, and valuable objects moved from place to place. More things had to be counted. More had to be stored between one day and the next. More rooms had to be opened in the morning and closed in the evening. So the key kept returning in ordinary moments. A trader checked a chest before sleep. A workshop master locked the tools at dusk. A town worker opened a grain room at dawn. A temple keeper closed an inner door after a ritual ended. A household hid money in a box and kept the key near the cooking place. You could see it in the small rhythm of settled life. A door opened in the morning. A chest closed at night. A storeroom was checked before sleep. A worker waited for a lock to turn before the day could begin. Then another major change came. Machines changed making. Industry changed daily life. Before this, many locks had to be shaped slowly by skilled hands. Later, parts could be made in larger numbers with greater regularity. This made locks more exact. It made keys easier to copy and cheaper to produce. What once took much time and much labor could now be made for many more people. That changed the place of the key in everyday life. What had once belonged mainly to rulers, merchants, temples, large houses, and store buildings moved into smaller, more ordinary spaces. More homes could have locks. More rented rooms could have locks. More cupboards, drawers, cabinets, and workplaces could have locks. The key came closer to the hand of the common person.
This did not happen in one day, but the direction was clear. The old effort was heavy. The newer answer was light enough to carry.
Long ago, safety might depend on thick wood, a heavy bar, a stone dragged into place, a watchful animal, or a person sleeping by the door. Later, a small shaped object could do much of that work more quietly and with less effort. That difference changed the feeling of daily life. In earlier times, many people could lift much of what they owned and carry it away. Later, a person might leave half of life behind when stepping out the door. A bed remained in one room, a chest remained under a wall, tools remained in a workshop, papers remained in a drawer, food remained in a cupboard. As life settled into fixed spaces, doors mattered more, and so did the small object that opened them. The modern world made many such fixed spaces: small homes, apartment doors, school cabinets, office drawers, shop shutters, factory rooms, post boxes, bicycles, later cars. A person might carry several keys in one day and use each one without much thought. One opened the front door, another opened a drawer at work, another opened a box, another belonged to a gate. That would have felt strange in a much older world, where many people had fewer fixed rooms, fewer stored private goods, and fewer doors that needed to stay shut. Even when the shape of the key changed, its old role stayed close. A key still marked the line between open and closed. It still told people that something mattered enough to protect. It still meant one person could pass now, while another had to wait a little longer. And now, of course, many locks no longer use the old metal shape at all. Some doors answer to cards, some answer to numbers, some answer to signals people cannot see. Some cars begin without a key being turned by hand. Yet the older need remains almost the same. People still want a place they can close. They still want to leave something behind and believe it will remain there. They still want to sleep knowing that not every door opens easily in the night. That is why even the newest lock still belongs to an old human story. It belongs to settled life, to harvest and storage, to work, trade, records, trust, and guarded spaces. Because every closed door still asks a quiet question: who may open it? Who must wait? That question is ancient. The key has carried it for a very long time. Next time you hold a key, you may notice a little more inside that small shape. You may think of a village at the end of harvest, with grain carried in before dark. You may think of a tired worker at a table, still filing a lock in fading light. You may think of a trader resting beside a chest after a long road. You may think of a temple keeper opening an inner room in the morning. You may think of a parent checking the door at night before the house grows quiet. This small object stayed close to people as they changed the way they lived. It stayed near them when life moved from the open ground to the settled room, from the carried bundle to the stored jar, from the simple shelter to the door that had to be closed with care. And even now, in newer forms, it is still near daily life, near the door, in the bag, in the pocket. It is a small thing, but it has stayed with people for a very long time.
If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.